What is up, guys? Citizen JV, and today we're going to be talking about Alien Isolation. And I would have to say one thing is that, amongst other science fiction or psychological horror games like Layers of Fear, Soma, Amnesia: The Dark Descent, and others as well in that type of genre, I think when it comes to Alien Isolation, this is one of the most interesting and intriguing type of mystery and horror mixed into it. And Amnesia: The Dark Descent did a really good job with that though too for me. But however, what I really love about Alien Isolation, it's not just because of its story. It's not because that it takes place after the events of Alien 1979 film, 15 years after prior. And it was very interesting so far. I have not finished this game. However, what I truly love about this game too in general is the fact that there is a lot of stealth and survival involved in this game. It's one of the most unique ways of getting through a game like Alien Isolation. However, it was the same thing like that in Amnesia: The Dark Descent. And I think in Amnesia: The Dark Descent, it was you were not able to do any type of combat. You can do certain types of combat in Alien Isolation, but it's not necessary. But there are certain things that you can use to, stay in the shadows and vice versa. And, this is what this game is based on. It's not just about, the stealth and survival, but it's about of not being seen. It has that type of, what do they call it? Of that type of evasion method to it. And I think that's what I really love about this game. Now, another thing that you can also use is that you have a motion tracker and then you also use a flamethrower. However, there are other weapons in this game. You can use a electric baton if you want to go up to certain humanoids. I mean, there are human enemies in this game as well, and you could be able to knock them out with that. I mean, you can't do any other stealth mechanic, like knocking them out with your fists or whatnot. That's where the stun baton comes into play. You're stunning your victims or you're stunning those humans. So another thing I would really like to add here though too is that you're not. It's not very. It is somewhat comparison to that of what the original film did back in 1979, the year I was born. And so, like I say, this game is very. It is different to a certain degree and an extent that it plays similarly to Amnesia: The Dark Descent because you have that hide and seek factor. This game not only provides the hide and seek factor, but however, what it really boils down to is that you have to hide from the xenomorph, which is the alien. And I think that's where this game really, really is so interesting of what it wants to do. And I think Alien Isolation does it very, very well. And there is one thing I really want to add here, though, too, however, is that, I know this is many years late, obviously, but, the reason why I decided to make this video on this game is because I recently watched the first Alien movie for quite some time. And so I'm like, you know what? I want to play into Alien Isolation. And when I first played this game, I really didn't think much of this game at first, because it was the same thing. It was the same type of reaction as I felt with Amnesia: The Dark Descent. I'm like, nope, I don't want to play this because I don't like scary. I like scary games, but I don't want to be scared. Basically, I was like being a little bit of a wimp, sort of say. But then I finally decided to go back into Amnesia: The Dark Descent. I'm like, you know what? I really want to play this game. I heard nothing but great things about it. And it was the same thing with Alien Isolation. I think that's another reason where the Amnesia: The Dark Descent felt like to me in that same aspect, along with Alien Isolation. And I'm like, okay, no, I really want to dive into this and try to make everything make sense to me as to where this game is going to how this game is going to make me feel, not just as a gamer, but as how I love these types of games in general. Now, another thing I would really like to add here, though, too, is that Alien Isolation is a designed type of game to where it wanted to feel like the original Alien film, rather than like its sequels, where they were more action and less horror. But that's another thing where Alien Isolation really falls under. Like I said, it's more, it's the setting, it's the volumetric lighting to a certain degree, and the way how this whole entire game really just implements some really nice structural fortitude. And I think that's where this game really shines. And, I'm not comparing it to the Callisto Protocol. In that video, when I was talking about that game specifically, I really felt like I think the Callisto Protocol definitely looks a lot better than Alien Isolation, obviously, because it's a much more advanced game because they used a different type of engine. This game, but when it comes to Alien Isolation, it's one of those games to where it's like, I feel that there's a reason why they wanted to feel to that of what the original Alien film did. It was dark, it was cathartic, it was a little bit foreboding, and I think that's another thing why Alien Isolation does it so well, and that's why the original Alien film in 1979 did so well, because it was very atmospheric. There was a lot of lighting involved, and there was a lot of, is the way how the film was all directed, and it's the way where Alien Isolation just really brings that from what the original film did, and it's fascinating. It's the reason why I love the film, and it's the reason why I love Alien Isolation so far. Now, there is one thing I would really like to mention here, though, too, as of, years later. And so, but when this game initially came out, this game got some really mixed reviews. IGN gave it a very poor review. And so all I can say is that IGN was poorly mistaken. I think when it comes to a game like this, even though they are professionals and I'm not, but to me it feels like it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that there's always going to be a fresh pair of eyes. There's always going to be a different type of perspective or opinion on something, and that's another reason why a lot of people really didn't like how IGN reviewed the game per se. And like I said, I understand where the professional reviewers are coming from, other than myself not being a professional. But what I'm saying is that I don't need to be. It's like the only reason why I make these videos is because I'm very deeply passionate about it. I love the games that I play. I like making these types of videos and content, so that way people can be able to come back and say, hey, you know what? I agree with you, or I disagree with you. And it has to do with opinion and preference as well. And that's what it usually all boils down to. So, now let's get back into this game. What I really like about this game, too, is that there is some crafting in this game. You can craft different types of other unique things that you can do as well. You can craft, you can't craft flares, however. You can craft noisemakers, smoke bombs, flashbangs, EMP mines, Molotovs, pipe bombs, medkits, and stun. And you can't create the stun baton. The only things that you can create is what I just mentioned off. And so I think that's another thing why I like this game so much, though, too, is that, yes, there is some combat involved. There can be, but I highly suggest not using it because, for example, you do not want to use the gun. You can actually get a gun in this game, but you really got to be careful of how to use it or not to use it at all, because the alien will eventually get pissed off and it will eventually find you and it will kill you. And that's where I said before, this game is based on this game is nothing but hide and seek, or like the cat catching the mouse, so to speak. And so that's where this game really, really functions. But that's the fun of this game. It's not just because, like going around doing certain types of optional side quests that you can do or doing the main storyline. But like I said, it's the catch and release, sort of say. But every time when you die, you have to start over from your previous save point. There's not much of a checkpoint system in this game. Maybe there is or isn't. I don't know. But what another thing would I would really like to go back into the crafting system. I think the crafting system is very unique in other survival games like Alien Isolation. Amnesia: The Dark Descent didn't really have that type of thing. But I think when it comes to Alien Isolation, it just does something very differently from what other games like that of this type of genre, in this type of game itself. And that's where I think Alien Isolation does a really good job. It's like I say, when you create medkits, you have to have specific types of materials. And I really can't say what materials that you use, but there are certain types of resources or materials to craft the medkits, the pipe bombs, the Molotovs, the EMP mines, the flashbangs, the smoke bombs, and the noisemakers. But one thing I will mention here though too is that the noisemakers do a really good job of, it's what they do basically. It's pretty self-explanatory, and you throw those noisemakers into a certain type of distance, and you can basically not diversify, but you can basically divert the alien or the xenomorph away from your position with Amanda Ripley, and that's really cool though too. I really can't say anything what the flares do. All I know is that they are like some sort of type of emergency type of thing. So that's the only thing that I really can say about that. Now, with the stun baton, I think, like I previously mentioned, you can use that to use against human enemies. Just make sure that you don't go up to them and just not really prod them. That's wrong. But, just electrify them and they'll you get where I'm going with this. I know I didn't have to put that in there, but I thought that was kind of funny. The flashbangs, I haven't really used much of those, but like I said, any of the stuff that I previously mentioned of how you can craft them, and it has to do with what kind of materials that you use to craft these types of type of electronic weaponry in its own unique way. And that's where I think where Alien Isolation really exemplifies itself in terms of what you can do to a certain type of gameplay style. But like I said, this game is very heavily deep modified to be that hide and seek, that cat and mouse type of thing. But like I said, it's so much fun. And another thing that I really love about this game though too is, like I said, it knows what it's doing. I think the story is very well written so far, as much as how much I've been playing it. And it's, like I said, it's fascinating. I love this type of world. And the name of the ship that you're on is called Sebastopol or something like that. And, that's basically the ship that you're on. And that's where basically the xenomorph or the alien is on as well. And like I said, it's the cat and mouse thing. It's the cat and mouse thing all over again. And I know I always end up repeating that. But that's that's the whole entire game premise. But another premise of this game though too is like crafting certain types of items, of how you can use them, and vice versa. Now, another thing I would really like to add here too, I think, for me, for what it really boils down to, is that I would really love to see games like this again. Because, I do feel like that this game has a really good risk and reward type of system. But you really got to be careful because, like I said, it's about the xenomorph. It's the alien. And that's where I feel that, that's where I want to be able to have games like this very similar to. And Amnesia, The Dark Descent really does a good job with that as well. But I think as far as I'm concerned, along with Alien Isolation, I think Alien Isolation does it better. Because you know what you want to do, and you know what you have to do to be able to create that type of survival for Amanda Ripley. And so that's all I can say about that. Like I said, this game so far, like I said, it's absolutely phenomenal. I really think that I like the overall structure of this whole entire game, and it's fascinating to me. I'm a huge science fiction and fantasy buff, but if I'm not like watching any fantasy or anything else, but I'm a huge science fiction. I love science fiction. I think it's one of the best movies ever made in the year 1979. And so you can instantly tell that how much of a movie like that, the first Alien, and having, Alien Isolation taking place 15 years after the events of the original film. And so basically all I can say is that this game is very canon to the original film. So that's another thing I would add as well. So in turn, or in due time, like I said, I really would like to see games like this more often. And it's sad, really, because I really feel like that we don't see games like this anymore. And like I said, I would really like to see games like this again, because I really think that I really do feel like that there are not games like this that are not made enough. But to me, I just have so much praise for them, and it's fascinating. So that's pretty much all I can say about that. But anyways, one quick thing here before we finish this video up is that, do I highly recommend playing this game? Yes, I do. I really highly recommend playing this game. And if you want to be able to get to know more of the story from the original film, like I said, this game takes place 15 years after the events of the original film. And so you're getting that story from a different perspective, but it's still it's still the same exact story from the first one. And there is one thing I would really like to add here quick as well, is that I was actually having a little short discussion with a coworker of mine earlier today, and I was asking him, it's like, hey, have you ever played Alien Isolation? And he said, yeah, man, I really love that game. I think that game is amazing. And I told him, it's like, yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that though too, because I've been playing Alien Isolation for about a day or two. And so another thing that I told him is the fact that I actually had to ask him, which Alien film do you think is better in terms of its story and the way how it was very somewhat, cathartic in a unique way. And he says that the second one was like that, but he also did have to agree with where I was coming from with the first Alien film. Like I said in this video at the beginning, I felt like that the first Alien film was more dark. It was not more dark, but it was dark, broody, and cathartic, and that's where I think where the first one really is the best one in the franchise. So it was fun talking about it, so it was fantastic. But anyways, too much further ado, this is Citizen JV. Thank you for tuning in. Greatly appreciated. But if you have any comments or questions, put them in the comment section below. I'll be more than happy to reply back if and whenever possible. And you guys have a great night. Peace.